Hello, everybody. Welcome to Power BI for the Data Engineer. I am Priya Sathi. I am Group Product Manager in Power BI. Super excited to be here live from my home in Kirkland, Washington. And just like many of you, working from home with my dogs, with my kids, we're all online, and I do constantly get disturbed. But today, I've told everybody, including the dogs, not to disturb me for the next hour and 15 minutes because I'm super excited to be here at Virtual Pass and talk to you about Power BI for the data engineer. So just a quick introduction here. As I said, I'm Priya and I'm a group product manager in Power BI. I'm responsible for Power BI Premium and specifically the workloads of analysis services, paginated reports, data flows, and AI. And joining me today is Christian Wade. Christian is also program manager in Power BI and he's responsible for analysis services. So between the two of us, we're going to show you how you as a data engineer can leverage Power BI and the capabilities that we've built and we are building to build next generation analytics for your users. So let's start off with the agenda here. I'm going to start off with just talking about the Power BI vision. I am hoping you guys have had the opportunity to watch Arun Ulog and Amir Netz's session that aired before this. They walked in depth through the Power BI strategy and the roadmap. What Christian and I are going to do today is actually go into very specific investments that will empower every organization and very specifically every data engineer. And we will talk about the investments we've made and we're making that leverage your investments in Azure technologies, in other Microsoft technologies, such that you can ingest and prep data, you can apply machine learning techniques, you can leverage investments that you've made in data warehouses, governed with Microsoft information protection, and really scale to meet the demanding needs of your enterprise and your users. We'll wrap up with some call to action, but I'm also super excited that we will have 15 to 20 minutes for live Q&A. Really looking forward to your questions at the end of the session. And we have Simon and Chris Finland that are helping moderate here today. So do start thinking about those questions, and I look forward to that interaction later on. So let's start right into it, and I'll talk about the Power BI vision. So today, enterprises are asking the question, how do we bridge the gap between data and decisions? You're probably asking that question as well. We're living in a world of a myriad of data, and getting actionable insights of that data is not easy. So in a survey that Gartner did, organizations reported that only 30% had adopted business intelligence tools. Furthermore, what we found in a Forbes survey was that in departments, there was an average of at least 3 business intelligence tools used. And over 85% of organizations in an IDG survey reported that they struggle to analyze unstructured data. I'm sure it's structured data as well. So you as data engineers here today are probably asking these questions. And what we're going to walk you through is a journey of how you can do that with Power BI. So in Power BI, we've helped customers like T-Mobile that have really standardized on Power BI and eliminated expensive legacy systems. And they've empowered the users with one BI platform. So they used to have a legacy system that cost them about $2 million a year and about 6,000 users using the platform. But it was incredibly slow. By standardizing on Power BI, they are now delivering self-service analytics to the hands of their users, their business users, and at a much lower total cost of ownership. So they've really given the power back to their engineers and to their business users. So today we're actually going to talk about how we do that in Power BI and how can you as a data engineer leverage the capabilities in Power BI to bring that to your organization. So I'll start off with talking about our vision. So our vision in Power BI is really to enable a data culture. And a data culture is about everyone, right? A data culture is about replacing fiction with facts, facts based on data. So at the core of our vision is we want to empower every individual. And we've built Power BI with instantly familiar, amazing data experiences. So every individual user can ramp up easily. It's very familiar Office-like experiences, Microsoft Office-like experiences, and experiences that are driven and infused with AI, making the ramp up for that single user very easy. So when every individual ramps up and adopts the BI platform easily, the entire organization also jumps on that journey. The next part of our vision is really the data culture is for every decision, and we want to empower every team. So we've taken Power BI and we're integrating it where teams work everywhere in the organization, the fabric of the organization, so that teams can increase productivity. BI is infused into productivity tools such as Excel. Power BI is infused and integrated into collaboration tools such as Microsoft Teams, and Power BI is infused into Power Platform such that users can take insights and actually make them actionable, take some action, infuse it into existing workflows in the organization. And lastly, our vision is that data culture is for any scale. So we want to empower every single organization on the planet. And we want organizations to scale not from the 1 or the 10 or the hundreds of users, but scale to the hundreds of thousands of users and start meeting the most demanding needs of the enterprise. So whether that be ingesting and prepping data, whether that be being able to define semantic models, data models that hold the semantics behind the data, whether that's being able to embed those reports and create reports that are easily distributable, and at the core of it all, built with admin, governance, and trust. So today, over the next few slides, Christian and I are going to talk about some of these capabilities that empower every organization and are going to help you as a data engineer to leverage these capabilities and build next generation analytics. Christian will also be doing some awesome demos, so I'm hoping you guys are looking forward to it. If you guys are interested in the details around the middle two circles, how the capabilities we have for every individual and for every team, I would ask you guys to watch Arun and Amir's session that aired before this to get more details on that. So let's go right into some of the capabilities here in empowering every organization and empowering you as a data engineer. A lot of the capabilities that I'm going to talk about today, and that Christian's going to talk about as well, is powered by Power BI Premium. So these are premium capabilities in Power BI. And so I want to start off by saying today we are super excited, actually as of yesterday morning, super excited to make available to you the next generation of Power BI Premium. For those of you that are seasoned and have been using Power BI for weeks, months, years with us, you're probably very familiar with Power BI Premium. But let me kind of tell you guys, if you're new to the audience here, Power BI Premium has all of the advanced capabilities that include capabilities like paginated reports, AI capabilities such as applying text analytics, automated machine learning. It also includes advanced capabilities to deal with big data models, where you have fact tables that are potentially have billions of rows of data. So until yesterday, we had Premium Gen 1, and Premium Gen 1 was basically licensed by capacity and licensed by basically vCores. You purchase a number of vCores and the price tag started at $5,000. So with announcement of Power BI Premium Gen 2, we're super excited that we are able to now bring to you not only the flexibility to license by the capacity that you were used to, but also at a price tag of per user. So you can license by every individual user, and you will be able to give the power of all these premium capabilities to the hands of every single user in your organization, or those users that need it the most. Data engineers and the business analysts, or the power analysts that really need these more advanced capabilities of business intelligence. What I'm also excited about Gen 2 is that it gives you up to a 16x performance boost from the previous generation. Several customers joined us in this journey and have reported not only performance boost, but also happy customers, happy users. And in the upcoming weeks, we are going to bring to you a new feature within Gen 2 called Auto Scale. So if you guys have been using, Power BI and using Power BI Premium, you probably are aware of the scenarios where, you might have Monday morning usage spikes, quarterly usage spikes, monthly usage spikes. And when you have these usage spikes and you have unplanned number of users starting to go open reports on the system, you might actually need additional capacity, additional cores. What we're going to do with this auto scale feature coming in around the February timeframe is you will have the capacity to scale up as and when you need it. And this is all automatic. Power BI is going to do this for you, where you opt into the feature, and whenever Power BI senses, whenever we sense that your usage is going up, number of users are going up, we automatically add a vCore for you for a period of 24 hours. And then when we sense that, that is not required because the usage spike has gone down, it's more normalized, we automatically remove that for you. And what's cool is that this will all be charged to your Azure subscription that you can bring. And then the last thing about Gen 2 that will also come in the upcoming weeks is we're going to be giving you utilization analytics. So we've reimagined metrics completely with this new generation. And many of you asked for the ability to do cost management, cost tracking. You charge back to your departments and you want to be able to do that. This generation will give you the consistent and reliable cost management. So super excited that it's in public preview. I strongly encourage you guys to start off with this with premium per user if you don't already have access to premium capabilities, or to think about Premium Gen 2 for getting the much higher performance boost. So here's just a preview, a sneak peek of how easy it is for you to go from Gen 1 to Gen 2. If you saw, literally just click that enable button, went into my capacity settings and clicked on that enable button. And it literally is a matter of seconds, if not a minute, that you are going to be migrated over to Gen 2. What you're going to see, and a lot of our users have already reported this through private preview, is that this migration is very, very seamless. There is zero downtime. There's no impact to any user. And users are actually reporting better performance and happy users. So here's one of our private preview customers from Centrica Energy, Earning Richards, who actually used this and has reported the same as well, and feel like they can skip the data warehousing layer for a lot of the big data analytics with just Power BI connecting to the data lake. With premium per user, it's also the same thing. If you don't already have access to all of the premium capabilities that I talked about, and Christian will be talking about and demoing, I do want you to go to your workspace, go to your workspace setting, and you will be able to flip on your switch and get access to premium per user, right? Like you're seeing here on the image on my screen. I do have a URL here. So we are rolling this out. We are rolling out premium per user throughout the month of November. However, if you want early access or priority access and you want it right now, then do click on this URL. It's aka.ms/PPU preview. Do go to that URL and do fill out the form. We will give you priority access within 24 to 48 hours of getting your request. If not, as I said, we are rolling this out throughout November and you will get it. For this period of public preview that we're in right now, it is completely free for you for this period. So I want to get now right into all of these premium capabilities, and specifically for you as a data engineer. And I want to talk about the journey that you take in creating analytics and creating reports, right? From ingesting the data, right? From wherever it lives in, the source that it lives in, to prepping that data, transforming, putting in the right transformations, lining it into the right format, and to then finally creating those reports. So we'll go through that entire journey for the remaining period of time. So let's start with ingesting and prepping data. A simple report like this, let's start off with this. Let's say you created this report like this. This is Contoso, an electronics equipment manufacturer. This is a report that's built with predictions. And if you see, this is opportunity analytics, sales opportunity analytics, which helps Contoso look at an opportunity and look at the predicted status of winning or losing that opportunity. What Contoso can do here as well is look at the top factors that influence that predicted status, right? Whether those factors are the owner, the product manager, the factory line, the product line, and really do analysis on the opportunity itself. Traditionally, building something like this, you might think that it requires a lot of back and forth between maybe the business analyst, maybe a data scientist who's building the machine learning models, and yourself, the data engineer. And that there's a lot of that back and forth. There's a lot of code written. Maybe 2 months of time has gone by. But what I'm going to talk about is how easy it is to ingest and prep and do most of this without writing even a single line of code. So let's start off with just connecting to data. For those of you already familiar with Power BI, we connect to a lot of different data sources. We actually have over 150 connectors. These are first party, as in Microsoft built connectors, and also third party connectors, custom connectors. So we have connectors for almost anything, and you can connect to it no matter where your data is, whether it's on-prem or in Azure, in one of the Azure sources, data sources, or it could be in a third-party source. So we have connectors for Adobe, we have connectors for all of the Azure data sources, we have connectors for Snowflake, BigQuery, SAP, etc. And we are constantly adding new connectors. Every few months, we're reporting new connectors and we're enhancing connectors with new capabilities, such as single sign-on. So we make it very easy for you to connect to your data no matter where it's living. So one of the aspects of data preparation is really, once you connect it to the data, is to create queries, create dependencies, analyze the tables, and then create those, queries that end up as results in your report. So one of the things I'm excited to talk about is our upcoming data preparation capabilities that are going to be highly visual. This is going to be coming soon, and I think this brings great value to you as a data engineer. It's a rich visual interface that makes transforming of the data very, very easy. Drag, drop, you can visualize the dependencies between queries, between tables. You can look at it at the highest level or drill down into the most granular levels of queries and subqueries and their joins. So you can actually see the relationships and the dependencies between all of these queries and these tables, all in a very, very visual way. So instead of looking at lines of code, we're making it easy for you to look at it with this visual interface. And this is going to be coming soon. And I'm excited that you as a data engineer will be able to leverage this and do visual data prep right within Power BI. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about is applying machine learning capabilities into your analytics, the reports that you're creating. So I showed you Contoso's report that has opportunity analytics and a predicted status of winning or losing. So here is an example of how you can build predictive models in Power BI without writing a single line of code. You can do AI transformations like automated ML, text analytics, so cognitive services like text analytics. And it's a very visual interface here that you can see where I can go in and say, I want to do opportunity analytics. Power BI automatically detects what algorithms to apply. Power BI automatically detects what fields are the key drivers for this machine learning algorithm. And Power BI creates that ML model. So as you just saw, in about 5 clicks, I've gone from, taking entities, my opportunity entities, my sales opportunity entities, to selecting the specific entity that I want to predict an outcome on. With Power BI auto-selecting binary prediction in this example that you're seeing here. And it knows that that's the right ML model to apply. And Power BI also automatically selecting the fields to do analysis on. And all of this, again, without writing a single line of code. So you can then build those reports like Contoso has with opportunity analytics. So the next thing I want to also talk about is, if you actually have a data science organization and you as a data engineer work with your data scientists, how easy it is to leverage existing machine learning models. So if your data scientist is using Azure Machine Learning Studio, you can then get permissions to those models, and right within Power BI, you can very easily and automatically access them. So once you've been given permission to them in Azure Machine Learning, you in Power BI now have access to them, and you can incorporate that ML model, no matter what it is, into your analytics and into the reports that you're building. So not only do we give you the ability to use the automated AI that is built right within Power BI, but also to leverage anything that has been built by existing data scientists in your organization. Next, let's talk about, you've built these as a data engineer, you've built these ETL steps. And we want these ETL steps to be reusable, and you take these compostable building blocks and make them reusable across the organization. So a few things here for you as a data engineer. One, we support the common data model format in Power BI, so you can prep data really quickly. So if you're not familiar with the CDM format, CDM, or the common data model format, is an industry standard format that we've built in Microsoft, leveraging industry knowledge for very standard entities like sales and purchase order. These are very standard definitions of data, which have standard fields. So within Power BI data flows, you can actually prep your data very quickly. Once you've connected to it and brought those entities in, you can land them in this CDM format. So what is super valuable about, landing these in a CDM format is that we store it in the Azure Data Lake, ADLS Gen 2. And once it's in there, it can be easily leveraged or shared with other services, other applications. If you're using Dynamics, if you're using Azure Data Services, it can be very easily leveraged and used by those as well. Now, behind all of these ETL steps, we actually, within Power BI data flows, have a computation engine. And that computation engine does all of the orchestration at scale. So you don't have to worry about all that management, administration overhead, and managing refreshes and schedules at scale, at enterprise scale. So with that, what I'm going to do is now hand off to Christian Wade, and Christian is then going to walk through everything that we're doing to integrate deeply with our Azure data stack. So Christian Wade, you want to take it away?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Priya. I'd like to share my screen since I'm going to be doing some demos. Do you mind just unsharing yours? Thank you.
Christian. Go for it.
Thank you. Okay, I take it you can see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much, Priya. Hello, everybody. Welcome to my home. We are very excited to do this virtual past conference with you, and we can't wait to see you all in person next year. Fingers crossed. All right, so let's start with the deep integration that we have with the Azure data stack. We are very fortunate to be built on Azure and have the option to integrate deeply with Azure Synapse Analytics. Okay, I'm just checking my sharing screen setting. Okay, to integrate deeply with Azure Synapse Analytics. So you may be aware that you can take a Power BI workspace, you can associate it with a Synapse workspace in the Synapse Studio portal, giving a data engineer a single pane of glass that covers the entire analytics stack, from SQL queries to Jupyter notebooks to Power BI data sets, Power BI reports. You get full fidelity Power BI report authoring here in the Azure Synapse Analytics Studio. And something that we are extremely excited about that's coming in the first half of the next calendar year is the Performance Accelerator for Synapse Analytics. So the idea here is that your users can use Power BI reports and data sets that are running in direct query mode, so that as users are interacting with reports, Power BI will, on the fly, submit federated SQL queries down to Synapse, right? And then Synapse will keep a log of those queries and will design kind of strategically designed materialized views to boost performance. And it will do all of this automatically. Those materialized views get redefined on a schedule. So this is now a self-learning, self-optimizing system that makes it much easier. This is traditionally one of the bigger blockers, is the kind of advanced query optimization skills that this just takes care of for you. So we're very excited about this deep integration that we are building with Azure Synapse Analytics. This is a really unique integration that we have with Synapse. So to give you a feel for what it looks like, I'm going to run this little video. So here we have a Power BI report over a massive Synapse data set. This has got about 160 billion rows. And actually the queries are quite fast if you consider the volume, but they're just not fast enough for what the Power BI user would expect. The Power BI users are business users. They want snappy, instant response times, instant gratification. 73 seconds, despite the fact that we're talking about 160 billion rows, 73 seconds is not going to cut it for the business user. So as you can see here, Synax is keeping track of all of the Power BI queries that are submitted to Synax. And then here we can see the query plan for one of those Power BI queries, and it has a lot of room for improvement. You can see that there are massive joins that are taking place here over really large volumes. So what we're going to do, at the flick of a switch, we're going to enable the performance accelerator. So in this case, we're doing it in Ssms, but you will soon be able to run this whole demo in Synax Studio. There'll be a nice little UI to enable performance accelerator. Having enabled it, these materialized views get created, right? And so these are going to really boost query performance. They're going to be redefined on a scheduled basis so that Synax just does the work for you. You don't need to worry about it, and it becomes a self-learning, self-optimizing system. So with these materialized views in place, if we now refresh these same visuals, you can see that the time to refresh them is much faster than the 73 seconds that we had without the materialized views. And it's much more in line with what the Power BI user would expect. And here we see the query plan for that very same query that was submitted from Power BI to Synax. As you can see, it's much more efficient, far less rows, and you can actually see some of the materialized view objects right there in the output list. So this is the concept. We're very excited about this. Like I say, it's going to be integrated into Synax Studio. We're working on this as we speak, and this will be launching in the first part of the next calendar year. All right, so moving on, and let me get to the next slide here. Okay, so let's talk about security and data protection. So again, we are very lucky in the Power BI group. You know, we're not only built on Azure, we have a ton of these Azure services that we can integrate with at a very deep level, but we have over 3,500 security professionals here at Microsoft. And again, we're going to build on the work that Microsoft is doing as a whole. You know, with projects and contracts like the JEDI contract, we're also working with the MOD in the UK. We've taken, over the last 12 months, we've really taken a serious inventory of our security. We've done a lot of investment, spent a lot of time to really tighten up the security as much as possible. There's so many security features. Bring your own key, where the customer can manage their own key for encryption at rest, and we do encryption at rest and in transit. We've got service tags, private links, virtual networks, so that you can, for example, refresh a Power BI data set that's getting data from a Synax instance on the same VNet without requiring a gateway, which will be extremely valuable, and many other features that I really don't have the time to really dig deep into. But just to let you know that all of this work that we've done to enhance our security stack is directly transferable to other industries, not just the defense and government industries. You know, this transfers directly to many other industries that have high security requirements. So, and in the current climate with people working from home, a lot of people working from maybe perhaps unmanaged devices, data leak protection is very important for organizations. So again, we built on the infrastructure that is already out there, that's built by Microsoft, and we built on the Microsoft Information Protection sensitivity labels, which you may be familiar with Microsoft Office. And just to let you know, these sensitivity labels are not there just to disallow you from sending an unencrypted attachment to someone outside your organization, right? These sensitivity labels are deeply integrated with a huge infrastructure for security admins, and it integrates with Microsoft Cloud App Security and a whole system for alerting security professionals and, you know, taking inventory of all of the data assets and by categorization based on these security labels. So we are first-class citizens of this framework. You can go straight into Power BI. You can tag a Power BI data set with a sensitivity label as highly confidential. That will then get inherited across the stack to the reports, to the dashboards, and even if you download the data to Excel, you still get the sensitivity label. So this is going to be governed by a bunch of policies in Microsoft Cloud App Security in terms of who's allowed to, which regions are allowed to access data. It's gonna surface suspicious activity, alerting, etc. Okay, and we are actually taking this further with something that that will be launched in the near future, which is the inheritance of these very same sensitivity labels from the data source, so that it can actually propagate across the entire data stack. So here we have a table in Synax, right? And we're in Azure Security Center, and we can actually tag the individual columns in the table in Synax here, and then we go ahead and save this. And then when we switch over to Power BI, we're going to refresh the lineage view. So this gives us all of the interdependencies between the Power BI artifacts. And so if we refresh this, we will see that that sensitivity label has been inherited to the Power BI data set and even to the downstream reports and dashboards, etc. So you get this kind of end-to-end propagation of these classifications for data protection. Okay, and even if I go ahead and create a pivot table against that data set, so here I'm going to use the Get Data experience in Excel to create a pivot table. And here is the, I'm just going to move this out of the way in case this is blocking your view. And so here you can see that we have the shared and certified datasets dialog. You can see the datasets that are classed as certified and promoted due to data governance processes as the single version of the truth. And you can see that the sensitivity labels are nice and visible there. And even the Excel file itself, due to the presence of a pivot table that's getting data from a Power BI data set that has the sensitivity label applied to it because it inherited it from the Synax SQL pool, you're just getting this end-to-end propagation of the sensitivity labels across the entire stack. Okay, and this is all going to be governed, and this is all going to have to adhere to the policies defined by the security administrator at the organizational level in Microsoft Cloud App Security. So this is really a unique differentiator that we have as Microsoft, that no other BI vendor can claim this level of integration with Microsoft information protection infrastructure and capabilities in the whole Microsoft security ecosystem. Okay, now let's see, let's move on to management and governance. Let me see if I can just hide this. There we go. All right, management and governance. So we are building integration with Azure Log Analytics. So you may be familiar with Azure Log Analytics. It is an Azure service in its own right. All of the major Azure services integrate with Azure Log Analytics. So, and they all send their usage and telemetry data to Azure Log Analytics. So the concept here is that you associate an Azure Log Analytics workspace with the Power BI workspace. The Power BI workspace will then send all of the fine-grained usage and telemetry data through to Azure Log Analytics so that you can get really good visibility of who's using the system, which users are placing a strain on the system. You know, you can use it for auditing, you can use it for a range of scenarios. You can access this data in many ways, including in the Azure portal. You can just come into the Log Analytics workspace. You can write KQL queries against the Azure Log Analytics repository, which is a fantastic query language for this type of log-based querying. You can do visualizations, you can put them in a dashboard in Azure, all right? And you can also, of course, get that data and put it in a Power BI report, which is what many, many people do. And the reason this is very relevant is because we are building some pre-configured reports that will run on top of Azure Log Analytics, and it will allow you to trace user interactions from the report through to the DAX queries, through to the in-memory engine in Power BI, through to direct queries against Synapse, and then be able to even diagnose whether materialized views are getting hit in Synapse, etc. Right? So you're going to get that end-to-end traceability, complete transparency in terms of what's going on in the system and in the interaction between all of the components of the system. It's going to be much easier to have that integrated view. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Let's move on to enterprise reporting. So as I'm sure you're all aware, let me just get this little Zoom thing out of the way. There we go. So as I'm sure you're all aware, paginated reports in Power BI, they have their lineage and heritage from SQL Server reporting services, just a workhorse of industry in their own right. There's so many organizations that depend on these paginated reports for pixel perfect, header, footer, very printer friendly. So we recently announced Power Automate enhancements so that you can have a Power Automate workflow that generates a PDF file, perhaps as part of an part of an invoicing process. And we will soon be the paginated report subscriptions. You will soon be able to attach a large PDF or PowerPoint file to the subscription email. So we're really working on enhancing the subscriptions there. So, paginated reports, you can have them all co-located in the same Power BI workspace with your other Power BI artifacts so that they're nicely, easily integrated and discoverable by your business users. And we are very happy to announce that we are launching, I think as of yesterday, you can now access these pre-configured virtual machines to allow you to lift and shift your on-premises workloads to virtual machines in Azure, right? So we have SQL Server reporting services 2016, 2017, and 2019. So you can just take your SQL Server reporting services workload and just lift and shift it straight up to a pre-configured virtual machine. Obviously, in time, you can take those RDL files and put them in the Power BI service as well. And we also are launching SQL Server analysis services pre-configured virtual machines. These ones initially are just for SQL Server 2019 multi-dimensional. Tabular and previous versions of SQL Server will come in the near future as well. And this is really relevant for customers. We know there are so many multi-dimensional workloads on premises. There are so many customers that are supporting multi-dimensional workloads. And so this is our recommendation for these customers that want an easy way to lift and shift into the cloud, is to take those multi-dimensional workloads and put them in the pre-configured analysis services virtual machines. Over time, they can redesign, re-platform, and modernize into Power BI. But in the meantime, it's absolutely, this is a really easy avenue to get into the cloud using these virtual machines. And last but not least, let's talk about enterprise semantic models. Then I'm going to go into a few demos. So I'm sure, this is the past conference. I'm sure most of the people watching this are aware that we at Microsoft have a deep heritage in enterprise BI. The Power BI dataset is literally running on an analysis services instance behind it, both in the service and in Power BI desktop. And analysis services has been a market leader for multiple decades. We are the only vendor to be ranked in the leaders quadrant in Gartner's Magic Quadrant for 13 years in a row. There's no other vendor that comes close to that. 13 years in a row, and 13 years ago, it was all about enterprise BI, right? Self-service BI was barely recognized at that point. So we have a deep heritage in enterprise BI. And since the Power BI dataset literally runs on the analysis services engine, what we've done is we've opened up the XML8 endpoint, which is an open standard, industry standard protocol to access the analysis services engine in Power BI, so that even non-Microsoft data visualization tools can access the Power BI data set as though it were an analysis services data set. A lot of these non-Microsoft data visualization tools support this kind of live connect model where users don't need to copy a bunch of data locally. So why is this relevant? Why am I pointing this out? The reason I'm pointing this out is that for customers who are rolling out a large-scale single version of the truth semantic model with users in numerous departments, in numerous geographies, it's inevitable in some cases that there may be the odd user that has not yet gravitated to Power BI and they're still using non-Microsoft data visualization tools, and that's not a problem. We're not going to tell customers, oh, you can't roll out your semantic model at a global scale because of this. It's absolutely fine. We're confident that over time, even those customers will come to know and love Power BI as a data visualization tool. But in the meantime, that's not a problem. They can continue to use the non-Microsoft data visualization tools. You can promote this semantic model at a global scale for global consumption for all of the users. We don't, differentiate across the user base. So we have this open platform connectivity. All right. And something that we are extremely excited about, we're working on shipping this new composite models feature by the end of the year. We are working tirelessly to ship the new composite models feature, much like we are working tirelessly at Microsoft to ship Xbox Series X for the holidays. We really want to get you this composite models feature by the end of the year. So the concept here is that you have this enterprise semantic model. It has all of this business logic built into it with complex calculations, complex relationships, and KPIs, and user hierarchies. And you want to promote the reusability for standardized decision making at a global scale. And you want to make the consumption of this enterprise semantic model as easy as possible. So traditionally, as with all of the other traditional BI products that I'm aware of. So traditionally, consumption of these enterprise semantic models was quite rigid. You were not able to combine it with local data. So the idea here is that you can combine it with local data without having to copy any data locally, without having to create data silos, without having to create data fragmentation, without the business having to manage their own data marts and data loads and things like that. So it really streamlines the consumption process for these enterprise semantic models. And business users can combine data from the semantic model with any of their local data without having to copy it locally. It's a much more streamlined experience. And so with that, I will go ahead and switch over to a couple of demos. Let's see how we're doing time. Yeah, we've got plenty of time. So let's say, I'm going to start off with the business intelligence professional persona. Okay? So let's say I'm a business intelligence professional. I've put my love and dedication to building this semantic model. Right? I have the version out there in the service has got a ton of users. I've got, the usage is growing. I have 3 billion rows out there in the version in the service. I'm of course using the large models feature and incremental refresh. This data set in the service is 70 gigabytes in size. I don't have 100 gigabytes of memory on my laptop. I work for Microsoft, but we don't have laptops with 100 gigabytes of memory. So I've got this large data set, this large model up in the service using incremental refresh. I've got a ton of users, everything's going well. However, I want to enhance this model, and I want to put some more semantic modeling capabilities into this model. And I want to make it more of a multicultural semantic model. All right. And because I'm getting lots of users in different countries that speak different languages. So I want to make this more of a multicultural data set. All right. So I've heard through the grapevine. I'm a BI pro and I've heard through the grapevine. I was watching a session at the past conference, and I've heard through the grapevine that the analysis services engine itself, the mighty analysis services engine itself, is running right here behind Power BI Desktop. So naturally, I'm very intrigued, and I want to access the analysis services engine because I want to enhance this data set with additional semantic modeling capability, which is locked up there in the analysis services engine. It's lying dormant here behind Power BI Desktop because Power BI Desktop doesn't have the user experience to access the extra semantic modeling capabilities. So what are we going to do? Well, we recently launched this new external tools ribbon. You may be familiar with it. And as you can see, these are for external tools created by you, by the community. These are all created by the community. These are all open source community-based tools. As you can see, they're growing virally. There are so many of them, we can't even fit them all onto the ribbon, right? It's really taken off. And there are so many of these external tools that we didn't even foresee would be created. Right? So, and I'd like to call out that Daniel Otikia built the external tools ribbon as part of the Power BI contributor program. So we're very grateful to Daniel. He's also the author of Tabular Editor, which is one of the external tools. So I've opened up Tabular Editor. This is a fantastic semantic modeling tool. I don't have the time to do Tabular Editor justice in terms of its capabilities. It integrates with DevOps. It has automation of scripting for repetitive tasks. It has a best practice analyzer. It has a ton of features. So I'm going to focus just on some of the semantic modeling capabilities that are in the Analysis Services engine that you can access using Tabular Editor, okay? So I've connected to the Analysis Services instance running behind Power BI Desktop automatically. So these are the same tables and columns that you see here in the field list in Power BI. And so I've come in here and I'm showing you here a calculation group. So this is one of the features that the Analysis Services engine supports. These are supported in SQL Server Analysis Services since SQL Server 2019. And the concept here is that you can define DAX measures in one place and have them reused across all of the measures in the model. And this isn't just, you know, because it's a more elegant way of writing DAX. It's actually going to significantly reduce the total number of measures. It's going to address this proliferation of measures where you need to create a separate measure for every single combination of every bit of calculation that you want to do. So in this case, I'm doing currency conversion so that users in different countries can see currency-based measures. For all of the currency-based measures in this data set can be shown using the local currency symbols and the local currency values, right? So I define this once and all of the currency-based measures can subscribe to this calculation logic, right? Now, another feature that Tabular Editor gives us access to is translation. So again, following the theme of making this a multicultural data set, so as you can see here, that Tabular Editor supports all of these languages, right? So I've actually created a few translations here already. So this data set is already a multilingual data set, right? The reports that consume data from this data set will automatically be showing the tables, columns, measures, hierarchies, etc., using the language of the current user's locale, right? So this data set is already fluent in Italiano. It is already fluent in Français. Mesdames, Messieurs, j'adore Power BI. I speak a little bit of French, and I also speak some Portuguese brasileiro, right? So here we have some tables and columns in Brazilian Portuguese. So I can author all of these translations. I can save them back to the data set just by clicking here. And these translations are now ingrained in the fabric of this data set, where whichever workspaces this data set gets deployed to, it will always be a multilingual data set. So this is supported in Power BI Premium. It will be supported in Power BI Premium Gen 2, Power BI Premium per user, and you can use Tabular Editor to author these translations, as well as using the XML endpoint for scripting if you want. Okay, so having defined all of this extra logic, I've defined my calculation groups, I've defined my translations. I now want to publish this out to my user base, right? Because I want the users to start benefiting from this. So naturally, I'm going to come over here to the publish dialog. I'm going to click publish, and I'm going to select the sales and marketing group workspace, and everything's going well. I'm super excited. And now I'm faced with this difficult question. Do I want to replace the data set? And actually, I do not want to replace the data set. As I said earlier, the version of this data set that is up there in the Power BI service has 3 billion rows. I do not want to replace it with the version that I have here in Power BI Desktop, which is just a small sample of the data, because I don't want to have to reload all those 3 billion rows. I don't want to have to reload all of the historical data. That would mean downtime for my users of maybe 2 or 3 hours, which I really don't want to do. I want to do it much more efficiently. I want to do an incremental metadata only deployment, right? Well, luckily we have a way of doing that, which I'll show you now. So here we have the impact analysis. This shows me the downstream reports and dashboards. And I'm actually going to click here on the view impact link. And this will take me straight up here to the Power BI service, right? And so here in the Power BI service, it's going to load the lineage view for this workspace. And I can see end-to-end 360-degree view from data source through to data flow to data set, report, dashboard, across all of the Power BI artifacts, super valuable for these large Power BI deployments with lots of users collaborating in Power BI. I can see the downstream reports. I can even notify the owners of those downstream reports. Look, I'm about to deploy a new version of the sales model data set, and it's now going to be a multicultural data set. Go ahead and let your users know so they can benefit from it. Okay, so I'm here in the lineage view, but in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the settings instead. I'm going to click on Premium, And by the way, since I'm here, this is exactly where you would set your workspace to be premium per user. I'm sure there are a lot of people that are going to be doing this before I even finish my demo, right? So this is where you would set premium per user. And what I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to actually zoom in here. In fact, let me copy this workspace connection, and I'm going to zoom in here to the workspace connection, because this is very important. This workspace connection, it may just look like a little text box, but we can use this workspace connection in place of the analysis services server name. This gives us backwards compatibility with analysis services tools and processes. This implies that Power BI now inherits a huge ecosystem of partners and developers and community tools and expertise that has been built up over decades. This little text box here has just so many connotations associated to it, right? So I can use this as the analysis services server name. And the reason this will work is because this premium capacity has been enabled for XMLA. I've enabled it for XMLA read write, which I can actually show you here if I just get this thing out of the way. And so here I am in the capacity admin settings. This is, of course, where you would enable Premium Gen 2. It's right there. It's ready for you to go and try it out. We would love your feedback. This will, transform the landscape in terms of, concurrency and, this is a complete, in terms of not hitting the limit that, in terms of dataset refreshes on the same capacity, this will really transform the landscape. All right, so what I did was, in this case, I came down to the dataset settings here, and I have set the XMLA endpoints to be read-write that you can see here. Right, so I've set this to be read-write, which means I can now use that workspace connection to connect to this workspace as though it were an analysis services server name. For example, SQL Server Management Studio, right? Here you can see that I've connected to the same workspace in SQL Server Management Studio. I can, I can manage historical partitions created by incremental refresh for, fine-grained refreshes. I can do all sorts of scripting. I get full backwards compatibility with the analysis services tools and processes. I get compatibility with SQL Server data tools for modeling, etc., and a bunch of other things like SQL Server Profiler, etc. Okay, so having got that workspace connection, I'm going to come back over to Power BI Desktop, and I'm going to cancel out of this prompt here. And so, if you remember, we want to do an incremental metadata only deployment. Well, luckily, we have an app for that. It's called the Alm Toolkit. It's another external tool. It's another one of these tools that was inherited from analysis services. So here, as you can see, I've zoomed in, and you can see the same workspace and dataset, right, that it's remembered since the last time that I ran this comparison. And so this is a schema diff tool. It's going to go through all of the objects in the dataset. This is just like schema diff for relational databases and deployment of data warehouses. You deploy a new version of a data warehouse, you don't reload all the historical data. You just do like an incremental deployment of the new schema. It's exactly the same concept. I'm going to focus here, like here you can see the calculation group that we authored, and here you can see the translations. So for whatever reason, I'm not ready to deploy all of this, so I'm going to skip the measures because I can be very selective in what I want to deploy. I can be very responsive to my users' needs. And so I'm just going to deploy only the translations. Here are the Portuguese translations that we saw earlier. I'll go ahead and validate the selection. And now I'll go ahead and update. And there you can see that we deployed the translations to a data set with 3 billion rows in the service with and it happened instantly. So the point here is I didn't affect my users. I didn't have to cause any downtime. I didn't have to reload all of this historical data. I just did an incremental metadata only deployment. So having done that, I'm going to switch back over to the Power BI service. So here is my sales report, my beautiful, stunning report. It's getting data from the sales model. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the locale of the browser. It's currently picking up English as my browser default. So other users wouldn't have to do this, but I'm going to override it. And I'm going to set it to Brazilian Portuguese. And so Now all of the menu systems and everything in Power BI will be Brazilian Portuguese. I'll go ahead and refresh this report. This will no longer be a sales report. This will now be a relatório de vendas, right? So the Brazilian users are basically partying right now. That even when you come into edit mode, you can see that the tables, the columns, everything is in Brazilian Portuguese. This now speaks the native language of the users in Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, everyone. This is how we empower every user in every organization on the planet to achieve more. Through the power of the Analysis Services Engine and the semantic modeling capabilities in analysis services that are exposed through the XML endpoint and external tools. So this is fantastic. So I've just shown the experience for the BI professional that created this sales model, right? Now I'm going to switch over. I'm already switching over here into the consumption experience. So I'm going to carry on and show you more of the consumption experience. And I'm switching into the analyst persona at this point. So I want to do some ad hoc analysis on this sales model that's up in the service, right? So of course, I'm going to come straight into Power BI Desktop, my favorite tool. And so I want to connect up to the sales model in the service. I'm going to click on Power BI Dataset. And this is a private build. You wouldn't get that little dialog. So I'm going to connect up to the datasets in the service using the shared and certified datasets dialog. The certified and promoted datasets are right there at the top of the list, making them super easy to find. These are sanctioned as a single version of the truth. In my organization, they've gone through a data governance process, right? So I'm going to go with this sales model in the sales and marketing group workspace that we were just consuming from. I'll go ahead and create, and now you'll see the tables and columns pop up here in the field list, right? And so here we have the tables and columns. And so I'm going to use the magic of copy-paste visuals in Power BI Desktop to create this beautiful report. There we go, in seconds, right? So far there is nothing out of the ordinary, right? I've connected to a semantic model in the service. It's got 3 billion rows. I've created this stunning report in seconds. It's just a beautiful report. I've got a great experience here. And this happens all the time, right? We know that there are a ton of these large models in the Power BI service, and users are creating beautiful reports all the time. So there's nothing out of the ordinary here, nothing new. But we recently introduced the fact that even in this live connect mode where I haven't copied any data locally, I can actually see now, I can see the tables, the columns, and the relationships of this remote data set in the service. Obviously, I didn't copy any data locally, but I can still see the relationships between the tables. So that's good. But what is even more interesting than that is if I come back here, the whole get data menu system is still enabled. So traditionally, when consuming from a corporate semantic model, the experience was very rigid, right? And you weren't able to combine it with other data. So as I said earlier, a lot of analysts would have to copy the data locally, create their own little data marts and do their own data integration, put it in Access, for example, manage these data loads. And it was a big management overhead for the business, right? So now, I can just connect straight back up. I can convert this to a local model, right? And this is now converting from Live Connect to Direct Query. So this is now a Direct Query model on top of the data set in the service. Now I've got a local model, right? And now I can I can make this a composite model because I can combine this with data from wherever I want, right? So the shared and certified data sets dialog will pop up again. And in this case, I'm going to select a different data set, right? So I'm going to go ahead and select the finance model, which is right here. This is in a different workspace, and this is managed by a different part of the organization. So you'll see that we'll get some extra tables pop up here from the finance model, right? And yes, we're allowed to submit queries from one model to the other with value filters, and we'll get these new tables pop up, and we now have a composite model, right? So it combines data from these two remote corporate semantic models, and I didn't have to copy any data locally, right? So this means I can start viewing these measures and metrics side by side. In fact, if I want, I can even view the metrics from one model based on the dimension, on a dimension table in another model. So let's go ahead and create some relationships between these. Super easy. I just click and drag and drop between, for example, date, clicky, draggy, droppy, there we go. And we'll create a relationship between date and the finance table. This now acts as a bridge between these two remote corporate semantic models so that I can view the finance metrics by the date dimension in the sales model. And we'll do the same for perhaps customer number. We'll drag customer number over here so that now I can see the finance metrics by the customer dimension that is in the sales model as well. All right, so I've created these little relationships, just a couple of clicks and drags and drops, and that's it, I'm done. I can come back over to the report. I can use existing measures and I can view them by those shared dimensions, or I can even go a step further. I can even create another measure that combines data from both of them. So let's go ahead and create a measure. And I'm going to create a measure for margin, profit margin. So let's go ahead and say, we'll use this. So here you can see that this is a measure that on the fly combines data from the sales model, the sales measure, and data from the finance model for royalty and volume discounts to derive margin. So I can actually combine it even in my DAX calculation, right? Having done that, I'm going to make it a percentage, and I'm going to go ahead and drag it onto the visual. There we go. And so just like that, I've created this measure that combines data from the remote semantic models, and I haven't had to copy any data locally. This is a liberating experience for the analyst. This is so much quicker, so much easier than what they had to deal with before. And this is also fantastic news for the BI professional who built that sales model, semantic model, because now so many more users can benefit from it. The value that the BI Pro adds to the organization has just increased dramatically. And there is now no excuse. You can't say, oh, well, I had to copy all the data locally and create my own silo of data because I wasn't able to mash it up with other data. You've got the consumers of the semantic model have a much greater level of flexibility, right? And I can even mash it up with other data. It's not just for semantic models. I can perhaps bring in some data from Excel, but I happen to have some.
Hey, Christian, this has been such a great demo, and there's so much value that we're going to bring to the BI professional audience. I know we're running short on time, and Chris Finland tells me we've had a lot of exciting questions as well come up. So I do want to have the opportunity for us to make sure, given we only have about less than 9 minutes left here, that we do take some audience questions as well before we run out of time.
Absolutely.
Chris, Finland, or Simon, are there questions that you'd like for us to answer while we have the audience here?
Hey, I can read out some questions.
Sorry, my machine was freezing up. So some questions here that came in for I think Christian Wade. This is one you'll need to take. What is the real world risk of allowing Power BI Desktop to install non-certified extensions on a worry scale of 1 being low risk and 10 being high risk? How concerned should we be?
Okay, so first off, I'd like to make clear that organizations have the option to disable this. Right, you can disable it through group policy. And even if you don't disable it, the users that install the external tools need to be administrators on the local machine. So we went through a security review and made sure that that was in place. So that really takes the risk out of the equation from that perspective. Again, admins can control it, they can disable it through group policy, and the users who do have the ability to install it have to be administrators on the local machine. Hopefully that answers the question.
So is that a 1?
Yes.
Okay, fine.
I'll
All right. Sure. So is next question, is it possible to use Ssms to take a backup of the workspace data set or to restore it?
Okay, so it's not possible to take a backup of the whole workspace at this time. It is one of the things on the deployment pipelines roadmap to have the ability to switch out workspaces, but I don't have a time frame for that. What I can tell you is that we're working on backup restore for data sets, which will be fully backwards compatible with backup restore for SQL Server Analysis Services and Azure Analysis Services. You will even be able to take a analysis services model from SSAS and Azure AS and go ahead and restore it to Power BI. I don't have a time frame for that right now, but we are actively working on it, so I would expect it in the not too distant future. The next thing that we will be delivering in this area is backup restore for datasets, and it will be backwards compatible with analysis services backup restore.
Cool. All right, and will the material views remain persistent? In other words, the second user comes in, will they have a faster experience?
When the second yes, the materialized views will be shared across users. So when the second user comes in, that they will be able to leverage the same materialized views that the first user used. In fact, the materialized views are created at kind of strategic aggregation points to maximize reusability across queries. It's not like exactly the same query has to be submitted to hit the materialized view, right? So the materialized views are defined at strategic aggregation points to maximize reusability for all of the users.
Okay, I'm not sure if this would be Priya or you, Christian, but for ETL, could you say more about how the computation engine automatically handles orchestration? I didn't catch what this means.
So I think I can answer this. So we have the capability within Power BI data flows, and we brought in a SQL Compute Engine, which is basically what I talked about. And that is what is going to give you the scale and the ability to scale to your orchestration needs. There is documentation under Power BI data flows on the SQL Compute Engine. So if you want details, you can go in there. But you would basically schedule your refresh just like you would schedule a refresh for Power BI data sets. And the Power BI data flows will scale to your needs.
Cool. Thank you. Those are all the questions I had in queue.
Awesome. Simon, anything that you think you want to surface up here?
There's nothing further to add to that from the discussion channel at this time.
Great. Then I just want to wrap this up. Yeah, let's just go back to I just want to wrap this awesome time that we've had here, guys, with all of you, with just a call to action here. And I hope you've all found this really useful, really helpful. And my call to action here is whether you're new to Power BI, whether you're seasoned Power BI user, there's a lot of new features that we've talked about, new capabilities that we've talked about that I would love for you to go get started with. Power BI Gen 2, Premium Gen 2, start off with all of the premium capabilities with Power BI Premium per user. Again, reminder, it's free for you right now to get started during this public preview period. Get started with some of the capabilities and Power BI data flows and AI that we talked about, so you can infuse AI into your analytics and into your reporting. And then also some of the great governance and integration with our data stack. So a lot of the capabilities that we talked about that are in public preview or GA are definitely available. The documentation is definitely available online. And the ones that are coming soon, we hope to bring it to you over the next few weeks and next few months as well. And with that, Christian and I would love to thank you. Do evaluate the session. There is the evaluation forms that you have. So thank you very much for your time today and attending the session. And hopefully we will see you in person at next year's SQL class. Fingers crossed. Thank you all.